Welcome to the Good Life Podcast, a place where we can come together to seek God's truth, talk about our faith, and encourage one another in our walk with Christ. I'm your host, Tyler King, and whether you're driving to work, doing some chores around the house, or just needing a moment of peace in your day, we're so happy to have you with us. Today, I'm joined by Mel Latore. Mel is one who is well studied in mental health and counseling. He's helped out churches all across the world, has done extreme mission efforts over in Brazil, and just has such a great history about him in ministry. And so we're excited to hear about some of the things that he has to say today. All right, we are picking back up. This is part 2 of our discussion on mental health and the church. I think such an encouraging topic because this is one of the most pressing issues, I believe, in the church right now is people struggling with mental health. I talked to you, I have an Apple Watch, and one of the reasons why I wear it is health conscious. I'm not the most athletic or fit person in the world, but I had a really good friend. He was actually a student at Bear Valley, and he was drinking way too many energy drinks, as you do in college, and he was on his 3rd or 4th Red Bull, I think, at the time, and his watch notified him that he had a problem with his heart. And so he actually got in his car, and he just thought, out of precaution, I'm going to go to the hospital and just have them check me out. And they said, if you wouldn't have come here, there's a good chance you wouldn't be here. Living, that is. And, we have indicators around us that tell us, like, hey, you're not well. The other day, I wasn't feeling well at the office. Jeremy walks into my office, and my head is on my desk. And he goes, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I chalked it up to just allergies.
Oh, yeah, allergies.
So then I go home, and Natalie goes, well, I think you need to take your temperature. Okay. Take my temperature, 102 degrees.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm not a doctor, and so I'm not giving any advice. But if you have 102, I'm going to guess it's not allergies.
Yeah, that's what I quickly learned. And then I was down for the count for like 3 days after that. I felt terrible.
It's rough allergies right there.
Yeah. But the body has ways of telling us, like, hey, you're not well. You need to slow down and take some time to rest. There's even technology now, wearing an Apple Watch or, different devices that people have. I know those little, they call them the Whoops, the wristbands that monitor your health even closely. They've got rings, the Oura rings that monitor all that. But then when we think about mental health, I think sometimes that's just such an ambiguous, out there thought of, well, I may be struggling. I may not be struggling. I may just be having a bad day. And that might be true. Yeah. It might be a symptom of something else. So just from your studies and different things like that, I would be curious to ask the question, what are some general symptoms that you probably need to start seeking help for your mental health?
Yeah, well, I think even the fact that we categorize it as mental health, right? I think we live in a world that we have so parsed everything, and I think part of that to our detriment, right? To go to a specialist, like we have specialists on everything, right? Part of it is this technology, all these medical advances, which has been great, of course. But what if I go to a specialist in heart issues, but the issues I have also overlap with 4 other organs because my heart isn't floating in nothingness, right? So that creates other struggles. And so the fact that we've parsed mental health as its own thing out here somewhere with its own stigma, what if we just approach it as this wholeness, like we as individuals, which is mind, body, spirit, like it's all interconnected. And interesting enough, like science has started to catch on to, now they use some interesting words that there's some research out there showing that even the way our brain develops, there's a seat of transcendence that we're meant to think beyond self and others and cosmically. And now, through a faith perspective, we would be like, of course, right? Makes sense. We were created that way. And so science is catching on. And I think the first part is we parsed it too much, right? But to your question, there are symptoms. And here's another thing. I think we should think of many of our struggles as symptoms. For example, anxiety. Anxiety, everybody has it to some degree, right? And it plays a role. It's functional. If I have an upcoming exam, right, as a student, that anxiety I feel motivates me to study, right? But the problem is when that isn't necessarily a disorder, but even that all the way to what's called generalized anxiety disorder, it's quite a spectrum of a sliding scale. But if we think of anxiety as, albeit at times we might feel like it's the problem, what if it's just a symptom of the problem? It's problematic. Same thing with anxiety, depression, sadness, anger, loneliness. What if we think of all those things as signs that something else is off and that my anxiety isn't just a problem? Because if we think it's just a problem, I can go take some medication and now I don't feel anxious, right? But what if it's masking? Now I've masked the problem, or I've masked the symptom of the problem. What if anxiety is telling me there's something I need to look into? Loneliness. What if instead of loneliness, we think of it as the problem? We think of it as a symptom, a sign letting me know I need to up my emotional, relational connection with people. If I'm feeling lonely, it's my mind and my body saying, hey, you need to go hang out with people. What if we approached it that way? So even that reframe, I think, is already important to start realizing that the signs of quote unquote mental health are many, and we have them all the time. I also read an article recently that said that up to 60% of intestinal issues, like what is diagnosed as IBS, or, I eat and my stomach is weird, or I have a sensitive stomach, is actually a sign, a symptom of trauma in your life. So if that's the case and you go to the doctor because you don't want to feel weird every time you eat, and then you just take some pills and now you mostly get through eating, but you're masking the sign, the symptom. It's telling you, your body is telling you through that example, and there's others like that headache that never goes away, or that back pain that you go to the doctor and there's nothing mechanically wrong with your back. Now, sometimes your back hurts because there's a disc that's bulging or whatever, but sometimes your body holds these symptoms because your mind won't articulate that you have an issue. So your body holds it. And so it might be telling you got to go hang out with people. You need to be more sociable. You need to unpack that trauma, that unresolved relational issue of your past. You just can't hide it. It'll come out somewhere. And so all those are signs. We just, I'm sure, sometimes we just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Or kind of get a false sense of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's something going on, like headaches. Well, I remember when I was in high school, I got my first migraine headache, and I thought, what in the world is going on? I started to see black blotches. It felt like I was under so much pressure, not pressure in the sense of like mental pressure, but like I was underwater pressure. Like my mind was just so weighted down. I went home, I slept for like 22 hours.
Wow,
I mean, it was crazy how hard that migraine hit me. And then I didn't have one for a while. And then I got another one a couple years after that when I was working up in Boulder, Colorado. And the correlation, the common denominator between the two, they didn't happen very often, but the two times that they did, I was under immense stress.
Yeah.
And so then I went and saw someone, and they said, it's probably a stress-induced migraine. Well, again, something that's mental was affecting my entire body. And again, I'll go just take some ibuprofen or some Advil and hopefully the headache goes away. Well, maybe.
And it might.
But there's something else going on there, and it's a mishandling of stress and allowing stress to pile on. And I know sometimes we're limited in our ability to handle certain situations. Sometimes it's just inevitable that we have to deal with stress. But I do think that there is a very real sense of misdiagnosing mental health sometimes.
Right. And for clarity's sake here, we're not doctors diagnosing anybody.
Right.
Your headache might be other reasons.
Yeah.
But there is clear evidence and research to show that it's, once again, because somehow we think mental health is its own separate thing out here floating somewhere. It's all interconnected. Like it's just health, right? And so sometimes it might just be your body telling you got to slow down. You need to take some time. You need to take a break. You need to hang with people. You need to not ignore your family. Like these symptoms and signs are many, and we have them all the time. We just, like I said, at times don't know what to do with it, or we misinterpret it. And then we don't really lean into the solution, because if loneliness is telling me I need my meaningful interactions with people are not enough, the solution is then meaningful interactions with people.
Right.
But when I feel deeply lonely, and if I've ignored it for a long time, and then if I've misunderstood it, and if then I think I'm socially awkward and nobody likes me, like in your mind just spirals, then it actually becomes a negative feedback loop that keeps you from meaningful interactions, that then deepens your loneliness, and then, deepens your anxiety, that then plays into your depression. And so it cascades into a whole lot of problems, which normally don't happen just overnight or over a weekend, right? It's a prolonged challenge that we have been ignoring or misinterpreting. And then 10, 20, 30 years into it, we're so deeply stuck in so many other issues that to unravel it seems overwhelming. And then it is.
Yeah. It's like, I remember back in high school, me and my friend, we just had this obsession of, trying to get as close to death as we could with just stupid activities. And so I had a brand new BMX bike, which has zero suspension on it. It's meant for skate parks and things like that. Well, there's this hill by my house that me and my friend thought, oh man, we could build a ramp at the bottom of it. We're not thinking, we're like 15 years old. The bike has zero suspension. It's not a mountain bike. It's a BMX bike meant for concrete, not jumping stuff. And so my friend goes barreling down this hill, hits the ramp at the bottom that we built. And it was, for two 15-year-olds, we built this thing stout. It was a big ramp. He launches in the air, ejects himself from the bike, tumbles, gashes his knee open. We don't want to tell our parents. And so he just kind of puts a bandage over it.
Hard to hide that.
Goes home. Yeah. And he's got a big old hole in his jeans. So he borrowed some of my jeans so he could go home, and we threw his away. Well, he kept hiding it and hiding it and hiding it. And a week later, he's got a staph infection.
Yeah.
And, I think that's definitely the case with mental health, is something's going on and we want to hide it, or we're embarrassed about it.
We ignore it too long.
Yeah. And then it turns into a huge problem.
Yeah. And I think the Bible speaks to that. Like from Genesis, just the creation story, we are created to be relational. We are created to be connected. We're created to be collaborative. We're created to see ourselves and others in ourselves. But the way society has unpacked, and probably many other contributing factors, our interactions might be many. You might come across many people in your day, but most people still feel lonely. We are, especially in the West, we are highly emphatic about individualism because of just the way our country came to be, which isn't, of course, all negative. But it has come at a cost. We have ignored the importance of meaningful interactions. We have lost ourselves in our phones. We are embarrassed to tell people or reach out to people that, we need to connect, or we're ashamed. And so we hide things and try to bury them deep inside. But they project out in a lot of ways. And that's why people find other coping mechanisms like drinking and drugs and workaholics, and
it kind of suppresses some of those things, or at least it tries to.
Yeah, or many other issues. But at its core, like the more we are open, vulnerable, meaningful in our interactions, getting outside, exercising, deepening our relationship with God, working on our personal relationship, working on our relationship with others, finding purpose and meaning, like sleep habits, eating, like all those things play into the kind of people God intended us to be. Spiritual practices, if we approach spiritual practices as relationship, like emphasizing relationship with God, with self and others, I think we would already be so much more engaged. And then spiritual practices are helping our mental health. Of course they are. They're helping our sense of self. They're helping our relationships with God and others. So yeah, we just need to rethink and reframe the way we even perceive reality and problems and symptoms and solutions. But when we ignore that for so long, and then stress, when we don't manage stress or don't realize how harmful stress is, then we got all these other issues. We really need to push through that, and I think it all starts with this reframe.
Well, and it was interesting. I mean, one of the classes that I had in counseling, which again, very limited experience in just the education of counseling together, but it was through solution-focused brief therapy, and which is a great model. It's a very quick, brief therapy. It's a very quick model of therapy.
Very practical. The problem is the problem. You know, it puts the problem out here. And
miracle question, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that they were emphasizing were warning signs, intense irritability. Depression, kind of the funk that we have gotten used to of, well, I'm just having a blue day, and that
low
turns
energy,
into a blue month. And
low energy, irritability, having a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, poor eating habits, you having a lot of negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts, being easily triggered, easily angered, or like I said, sadness. You have low motivation to do things you've been doing or enjoyed doing. You don't get out much. You don't interact with people. You don't, you're just numbing yourselves with things like drinking, drugs, doom scrolling on the phone, what the kids like to. It seems now on average, our kids are spending 5 to 7 hours on their phone. Hey, they're numbing themselves from a lot of things, right? So all those are signs, like pains in your body that you can't easily explain away with mechanical problems, tightness of chest. Sometimes you start feeling panicky. You feel that pressure on your head or on your shoulders. Like all those things are signs. And those are just some off the top of my head, but they should all be telling us, they're telling us something. A lot of times we ignore it because, like I said, we don't want to look at the fact that we might be lonely or have low self-esteem, or there's painful trauma experiences from our relationships in the past that we just don't want to deal with. But those things don't ever go away unless processed, unless faced.
Which I think makes this topic even more relevant, because I think there are a lot of people, especially in the church, who they struggle with some of these symptoms. And they don't attribute it to their psyche. And they just think that this is a normal way of life. It's like people who experience putting on glasses for the first time. They thought it was normal to see everything
things
blurry.
Were distorted,
And then they put glasses on and they go, oh, wow, there's so much more detail to life. And that's kind of where mental health resides, is you don't have to deal with all this. Again, you're going to deal with it unless properly processed through, therapy, or at least talking to someone. I think one of the biggest things, though, that helps with this is community. And so kind of switching gears a little bit. So those are some of the symptoms. Those are some of the problems that exist among, times when we need to help our mental state. So then when we think about our church theme for this year, we're in March. We're just kind of working through this theme of life together. When you look at what God created in the church, other synonyms for the church, the body of Christ, this oneness. It's not that these people over in Cambodia or Philippines are different than us or different parties. We're all in the same body. You think about the kingdom. Well, that completely destroys this nationalism that one country is better than It's Christ's kingdom.
Yeah.
And so you have God who is creating and bringing together this group of people from different backgrounds and different lifestyles, and we're all under this one umbrella. And unfortunately, the way that we exist in America, we all live so far away from each other. We're commuters in our friendships, which is difficult. And even, I mean, I know I give grief to people about this all the time. I don't think there were ever the good old days. I think people live in nostalgia too much, including myself. But I do think that there was a difference in how people spent time with each other in the past. Sure. And even the idea of neighbors. When we lived in Colorado at our previous house, I don't think we were on first name basis with our neighbors, like the people actually living next to us. Now we've gotten to know our neighbors here in Oklahoma. Okies are just friendly and kind. But when I think about the church and this idea of life together, there's got to be an emphasis of we have to do this together. This is not an optional task that God says, all right, you're a Christian, go off and be by yourself. So I know you've done some research, you've read some articles. What are the benefits of living life together in a community?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I really do think we have a serious issue with, like I said, loneliness. And it's not just my opinion. I've been reading some books recently on that. And the way, for the reasons you mentioned and probably many more factors, the way we currently do modern society does not promote togetherness. Now, you might come across many people, but you can sit in a crowd and feel horribly lonely. And so you have to be extra intentional in today's world to do community. And even in our church settings, like we come together, I think people are pleasant and, are happy to see others. But most of just from the briefness of the time we're together 2-3 times a week at most, right? The conversations are normally shallow and superficial and just cliche, just for time's sake. Hey, how you doing? I'm great. How are you? Great. Well, great to see you. Can you imagine, look at the weather. Wow, Oklahoma that kind of thing. But people are mostly hurting, they're anxious, they're afraid, they're unsure, and we just don't have too many of those spaces where we can really talk to each other. And so we need to be intentional. We need to find ways where you can sit, and I don't care what you call it. You call it think about therapy at its core is you paying somebody to be extra attentive and kind to you. Now, granted, with some skill sets, right, that can go beyond that. But man, what if we just were so much more intentional to be that already? To have a mentor, have a friend, once again, whatever you call it, a life coach, a partner. If we went out of our way and were intentional about those interactions, because then in those conversations, you're basically hearing yourself out loud. It's a sounding board. People are present. People are kind. People are listening. And even throughout history, I was reading a book recently where the author was noting these different things. Like I think in Japan, Okinawa, there was this concept called a moai, where it was families that agreed to be basically support systems for each other, for their kids from from birth to death. And there's even financial responsibility, some really interesting and research is showing that some of these places they call blue zone in our world today are places where you have quality of life and you have a lot of these people living to 100 plus. And some of these community things are being found out to play a role in that, why you live longer and happier and whatever. There's this Southern African term in this language called, the term I think is Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. So like even there's this concept of togetherness and a lot of these community focus societies have an easier time doing that, which is definitely what we read in the New Testament. Like they were communities that were more community centered, right? Civilizations that were more community centered. And the West, we're not. We're individualistic. My rights, those are at the highest. And those are fine and good, of course. So in today's society, in our Western world, we have to intentionally strive towards community. And that togetherness really is foundational in a lot of research, and I would say crystal clear in the Bible.
Well, and you think about that. I mean, you're in college ministry probably even more so than I am. I mean, working at OC and being around the students there. And for me, when I went through Bear Valley, it was 2 years of rigorous study with people next to each other. And
that community.
We were in the same classes all day for 2 years. And that's kind of rare for a college. Usually you have a class with so-and-so, and then you won't see them until 4 days down the road, and then you have that class again. And Bear Valley this is a difficult thing that we're doing, and we're doing it together. And so that develops and builds a brotherhood that we struggle, we agonize together.
For sure.
And at the end of those 2 years, when everyone was graduating and leaving and going away, there was this extreme sorrow. And
there's an emptiness that comes from that.
Yeah, we called it the BV blues because you just lived 2 years of life together, and you cried together, you laughed together, and now it's over. And we're all sent out to different places around the country to go live life. And we still meet up together and we still talk to each other. But I see that at college too, with these campuses of like OC.
Yeah.
And you have graduation, and there's a lot of, sorrow behind graduation.
There is, because they're going out there to do adulting, right?
Yeah.
But it's an adulting that at times they're just out there on their own, right?
Yeah. And they had that sense of community, and now it's broken.
Just think of, any of our listeners, I imagine can relate with, just think of a church camp that you might have been a part of, or a mission trip. There's just something about the intentionality of a community with a common purpose and just life lived. Even the trip that we talked about recently with some Bible majors at DC, it's just the togetherness already creates so many opportunities for community and conversation and support. And then a lot of those students, when they come back, now they know each other better and they continue that interaction. Or many of them will feel much more comfortable approaching me or Jeremy Beller that helped lead it to come and talk to us, because we had those 4 days of just hanging out and having lunch together and breakfast and, and standing in the rain and, that kind of thing. So we have to find ways to be more intentional in our meaningful interactions, be it a small group, be it, lunch, dinner, coffee, like whatever the mechanisms are, we need to be more intentional in doing that.
Well, and worship is not that outlet for it, because I think about like a normal Sunday for us. Yeah. We go to class and I teach. And even though I'm talking to them, it's not a deep one-on-one conversation. No. I'm speaking to 30 college students on a Sunday morning. And then I might talk to, 3 or 4 of them after class, and then they're talking to each other. And then we shuffle down to the auditorium where there might be 1 or 2 minutes of talking. But even then, we're in college, and so we're usually late. So we go, we sit in our pew, we worship. We're not talking to each other during worship. And then as soon as worship's over, there's kind of this rush to get to lunch. And North Mac actually does a pretty good job of, you see a lot of mingling and social, but still at most 30 or 40 minutes.
It's not enough.
And then we're off. And that's our week.
And of course, coming together is essential. Worship times.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of what unites us. It's a time where we can sing to God and praise and, be an encouraging communal presence, right? We can look around and be like, oh, look at all these people together. Yeah. There's a vibe, if you will, right? That of why we're together and the significance of the Lord's Supper and whatnot. But that shouldn't be the end of it. It should be, if anything, the what propels us to continue it, what reminds us of the importance of continuing. And that should then create these opportunities to us go out into the world and be more of that, right?
Yeah.
And not just for each other, but one way to quote unquote be more evangelistic is to be relationally present with folks.
Yep.
Most people are scared, anxious, busy, stressed, lonely. Just put that in your mind. And the next time you're interacting with somebody in the line that they're at your favorite coffee shop, or, you're talking to your coworker, or just know that's happening. And that kindness, that love, that emphasis, that compassion, that hospitality should open the doors if we take the time to do it. So it's a benefit to us. It's a need for everyone. And it truly is a worldwide problem, I think, that we're experiencing. Just some cultures, because of the way they function, might be addressing a little bit more than others, but it's a problem.
Well, and I think one of the biggest contributors to the problem is we've forgotten how to be social creatures.
Oh, yeah.
You think about Facebook coming out in 2007, and again, it's a false summit of socialization.
Mm-hmm.
Me commenting on a post isn't building a bond.
No.
It's hi and then bye, and it's gone. It's a 20-second interaction.
And there's studies that track as soon as now. Many have insisted to debate it's not a correlation, but the uptick in all mental health issues, you can bring it back to a significant moment in time when social media really launched.
Yep.
Now, is that the reason for all our issues and all our ills? No, we've had mental health issues for a long time. On the other side of Genesis 3 forward, right?
Yep.
But some of these things have contributed, and once again, we need to find ways, even if we're using social media, but we need to find ways to intentionally, truly, meaningfully connect with God, with others, with ourselves, and like all that is just interconnected, and we need to do better.
Yeah, and it just seems like, just from the conversation, that there might even be a sense of relearning how to do that.
Yes.
You think about kids in elementary school, and they're so good about connecting with all of their classmates.
Oh, yeah.
And
2-3 years later.
Yeah. And then you find your pocket, and that's it. And, maybe there's a sense in which we go back and we have to relearn.
We do.
I need to socialize more. And that plays a huge role in my mental health and, promoting a healthy lifestyle.
And what an amazing example we have in Jesus. Like, we don't have to go find ways to relearn this.
Yeah.
We just have to start implementing what is available to us, right? The example of Christ, the teachings, the biblical story, loving others, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, like benevolence, generosity, hospitality. We just need to start implementing that in a significant way. It really would have an amazing ripple effect if followers of Jesus truly made a high priority to do that. I really believe people are desperately looking for that. They just don't know how to put their finger on it and what that even means. And we have the good news, right? Which includes that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. And we just hope that this conversation has been beneficial to those who are listening. We thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.